I have read so many amazing books this month. It's truly been a great start to my year. Hello everybody, my name is Danny and welcome back to my channel. Today we have my favorite video to do each month, and that is my monthly reading wrap-up and Skee-B-R for the following month. So let's get started talking about all of the books that I read in January. So first up was my punishment jar pick, and that was Blue Period, which did not turn out to be a punishment at all. I didn't expect it to be. I thought I would love it, and I did. I actually read all 5 volumes that are currently out in English, and I gave the first 4 8 out of 10 stars, and the 5th one 9 out of 10 stars. It's so good, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I do, because I'm not usually into like slice of life kind of stuff, although maybe that's changing. Maybe that's a genre that I'm really getting into, and I look forward to that because this was so good. The next volume comes out in February, and you bet I'm going to be picking that up as soon as I can. Next up, I was supposed to read Jane Eyre for a romance prompt, but I switched it out for Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda because this is my game and I can do what I want. And I did not want to read Jane Eyre, but I still wanted to read a romance to fill Skee-B-R, and I wanted to fill the same prompts for Nostalgia New Year that Jane Eyre was going to fit, and so this was the perfect choice because it's a romance. The 2 prompts that I wanted to cover in the Nostalgia New Year were character name and title and audiobook, both of which I covered with this, so it was the perfect substitution. This was a reread. I read it back in 2017, and it's cute. It's not totally my thing. It's not something I would reach for normally, but I still think it's adorable, and it made me really happy to reread this, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. Next up, I had to read something that was fantasy or magical realism, and I picked Weathering with You. I read all 3 volumes on January 1st in one sitting. This was an instant favorite. I gave all 3 volumes 10 out of 10, and actually, I think I liked it a little bit more than Your Name. I still absolutely adore Your Name. All 3 of those volumes would be 10 out of 10 as well, but this one just a teensy tiny bit higher. Like I said, it was an instant favorite. It's so good. And I highly recommend this if you're looking for a quick read with some fantasy elements, but nothing like too heavy, because it is still taking place in the modern world. And I'm gonna watch the movie for this as soon as I can find it on some sort of place to watch it. I don't know why I said that so weirdly, but yeah, I really look forward to watching the movie for this. Next up, I had an aesthetic prompt where I had to read a hardcover, and for that I picked Daughter of the Deep by Riordan, and this was another banger of a book, but it was Riordan, so are we surprised? I don't think we are. And I would classify this as like a light sci-fi, if that makes sense, kind of like the sci-fi equivalent of urban fantasy, and it was so good, and I really enjoyed seeing his writing style in a story that takes place outside of his whole like godly book series like Percy Jackson, Heroes of Olympus, and all of those. It was really nice to see that in a slightly more realistic setting, and I gave this a 9 out of 10. And my last Skee-B-R prompt for January was a length prompt, and I had picked Trail of Lightning for that, and I just finished reading this yesterday, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. This was a reread. I read it back in 2018 when it first came out, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I had a couple more issues with it this time around that I didn't really see the first time I read it, but still really good. I still gave it an 8 out of 10. There's only a few things that I would have changed, and I look forward to getting to Storm of Locusts, the 2nd book in the series, as soon as I can. I had wanted to read it during January, like do them back to back, but I kind of ran out of time. I mean, I think if I picked it up now, I should be able to finish it by the end of the month, but I also don't want to rush it, and I'm gonna give myself a couple of days off of reading in order to finish up some other stuff that I wanted to do this month, and so that's my plan. And this was the last Skee-B-R book, and I'm excited to say that I had read all of them, which means I don't have to do a punishment jar pick this month. For that aspect of it anyway. I might still need to pull a punishment pick if I roll the same number in my Skee-B-R, but first we still have to go through the other books that I read this month that were not part of my Skee-B-R TBR. We're gonna start off with a little bit of a bummer, which is Warrior Cats Into the Wild, which I actually DNF'd. I was reading this as the Nostalgia Train Book Club pick of the month, and I got 62 pages in, which is about 20%, and I just couldn't keep going. I had been a little bit wary of it from the prologue, which is not a good sign, but I kept going with it, and there were just a few things that were described in too much detail for me to be comfortable reading it, and I just couldn't continue on. So unfortunately, I had to DNF it, but I still gave it my best shot, and hopefully other people reading it for the book club enjoy it more than I did. Then I read Demon Slayer volumes 7 and 8, and honestly they didn't really hit as hard as I had hoped they would, but I think that's because I already knew what was going to happen. I knew all of the emotional hits that were in this little Mugen Train arc. I still gave both volumes a 7 out of 10 because I love Demon Slayer and I love the story, and I think it's so cool the way they did different things in this little mini arc, and I very much look forward to continuing on with the story. And finally, the last book that I read this month was Absolutely Normal Chaos by Sharon Creech, and I read this specifically to cover the recommendation prompt for Nostalgia New Year, and I was really enjoying this. It's a middle grade told through a journal format, and it was really cute and funny, but then it kind of just cuts off at the end, and it, I don't know, that just left a bad feeling for me. I just really didn't like the ending. And this book overall gets a 6 out of 10 for me. It probably would have been like a 7 or an 8 if it hadn't ended the way it did, but I just really didn't like that, and sorry, but it just wasn't my thing. And now let's just move on to my Skee-B-R rolls to see what I'll be reading in February. Alright, why don't we kick things off with our first roll of the month? And that's 10 points, so it's an aesthetic prompt. Okay, so for that first roll, I got it in the 10-point spot, which means I have an aesthetic prompt. So I've got my green bin here full of prompts. We're gonna shake it up and see if it gives us a good one. Let's hope. Let's go with this one. A person on the cover. Alright, I actually know exactly what I'm gonna pick for this, so I'm just gonna go grab it for you guys. Okay, so my first book on my February Skee-B-R TBR, and honestly, the first book I'm probably going to read in February is Storm of Locusts by Rebecca Rohnhorst. This is the sequel to Trail of Lightning, which I just read, and I'm very excited to get to this book. The first book was a reread for me, but I have not yet read this one, and I'm very excited to see where the story goes, even though there's no news on when the third book will ever come out. But, yeah, I am very excited to get to this month. Alright, let's move on to roll number 2. And that's another 10 points, so we get a length prompt. Okay, so I rolled another 10, and this time it's a length prompt, so I've got my D8. I'm going to use my fancy metal one today, because why not? So I'm going to roll it, and see how many pages I have to pick a book for. That kind of made sense. Okay, so that's a 6. So I have to pick a book between 501 and 600 pages, right? Did I do that correctly? Yes, that's it. So I'm gonna go look at some page numbers and see what I get. Okay, so I'm gonna do exactly what I did last month for the length prompt. So last month I had to pick a book, I think it was between 301 and 400 pages, and I chose Trail of Lightning, and that was a little bit of a cheat because it wasn't 301 pages unless you counted the extra end pages, in which case it was exactly 301. In this case, I am picking The Rot by Siri Petterson. This is the sequel to Odin's Child, in the second book in the Raven Rings trilogy, and this one technically isn't 501 to 600 pages, but if I count those end pages, like the pronunciation guide and stuff like that, it is 503. And I'm gonna count this because I really want to read this book. I think The Might comes out in February, which is the third book in the trilogy. Maybe it's March. I don't know, sometime really soon. So I want to read this book in anticipation for that. The first book, Odin's Child, was one of my favorite books of 2021. And so now I get to read the sequel. Alright, time for roll number 3. And that is another 10 points. So now we have a genre prompt. Okay, we are apparently on a roll here with 10 points because I rolled another 10 points, and so that means I have a genre prompt. So I've got the blue bin this time, so I'm gonna shake up, and grab one from the bottom. Oh, I'm getting stuck on them. two that are stuck together. This one. Historical. Not sure what I have that's historical, but I will take a look and get back to you. Okay, so I completely forgot that I bought this book until I just looked at my shelves, and that is The Uninvited by Kat Winters. This is the same author who wrote In the Shadow of Blackbirds, which I read, I think during the summer last year, and it was okay. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't really my thing, and so I unhauled it. But when I saw this book come in at my job, I thought, for a little over $1, yeah, I liked the author enough to check out this book, and I think this is about ghosts, which I really like, and it takes place in 1918 during the Spanish flu pandemic, so a little bit timely. And it's historical, so I'm counting it, and I just really want to read it anyway, so I'm putting this on my Skee-B-R TBR. Time for our last roll of the month. And it's another 10, which gives us an aesthetic prompt and means I have to pull out of the punishment jar. Okay, so I thought this was going to be my last pick of the month, but I rolled another 10, and when I roll all the same number for Skee-B-R, that means I have to pick a book from my punishment jar, so this is the second to last book. But it's another aesthetic prompt, so I've got the green bin back. I'm going to shake it up a little bit, and let's see what we get. Black and white. Huh. I have an idea for this one, and it's fudging the rules a little bit, but it's fine. We're gonna roll with it. Okay, so I was looking at my shelves to see if I could find something that fits this prompt a little bit better than my original idea, but I couldn't really find anything, so I decided to pick a manga because, while the covers aren't usually black and white, the inside is. And I know that's a little bit cheating, but I did get some kind of big books on this TBR already, and I want a little bit of something lighter. And Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 14 comes out in February, so I'm gonna pick that and put it on my TBR, because it's not like I'm not gonna read it anyway, so it's kind of like a little bit of a freebie. But that is my fourth roll, and now all I have to do is pick out of my punishment jar. Alright, so here we have my punishment jar, so we're gonna shake it up a little bit and see what the last book on my TBR is for this month. Hopefully it's something I actually have access to. So, oh, okay, Zom 100. I do have access to this digitally, and I'm hoping that I like it enough to buy it physically because the volumes are absolutely gorgeous. We all know I love zombies, and so while I did not want to start yet another ongoing manga series this year, I wanted to finish them up. I wanted to finish up ones that I'm already in the middle of that have ended, but this is ongoing. Blue Period is ongoing, and I started that one last month. It's fine. I'm going to be starting Zom 100 in February, so that's my last book on my Skee-B-R TBR. Alright, so this feels like a little bit of a light wrap-up because I only have 3 books in my hand. We have Storm of Locusts, which is for a person on the cover prompt. We have The Raw, which is for a length prompt to read a book between 501 and 600 pages, and The Uninvited, which is to read a historical book. And then I also have Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 14 because the insides are black and white because it's a manga, and that's for the black and white prompt. That doesn't come out until February 1st, so I don't own it yet, but I will own it physically. And then the last book is Zom 100, another manga that I do not own physically, probably won't read physically, but if I enjoy it digitally enough, I will buy a physical copy of it. And that is my TBR for February. I really am excited for all of these books. This did not turn out at all how I expected it to, but I don't think it ever turns out how I expect it to. Yeah, that's all for me, folks. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel for more content, and that way I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.